Inter Miami has been the biggest topic of discussion in the world of soccer with the recent signing of arguably the greatest player of all time, Lionel Messi. But it hasn't stopped there for Inter Miami. We have seen Messi's former teammates Sergio Busquets and Jordi Alba join the club, with rumors of Andres Iniesta, Luis Suarez, Sergio Ramos, and Eden Hazard looking to join as well. David Beckham is building arguably one of the greatest MLS teams of all time under new head coach Tata Martino, who has been a very successful coach in MLS, with Atlanta United winning the 2018 MLS Cup and was Messi's former club and national team head coach. On July 21st, we saw Messi and Busquets make their Inter Miami debut off the bench in their Leagues Cup match against Cruz Azul, where the soccer gods couldn't have written it any better, with Messi scoring a 90th minute winning free kick to secure the win for his new club. That was followed up with Messi getting a brace against Atlanta United, where they secured the top spot of their Leagues Cup group. It's all sunshine and rainbows for Inter Miami this season. Inter Miami is sitting in last place in the Eastern Conference with just 18 points. 12 points off of a playoff spot, where the club is on course to have one of the worst finishes in MLS history. The biggest discussion for all MLS fans is, with all the new reinforcements Inter Miami have brought in midway through the season, can they claw themselves into a playoff spot? Because all of us would hate to not see Lionel Messi in the playoffs. So with my friend and MLS expert, Anthony La Rosa, we will determine if Inter Miami will make the playoffs. Let's start from the beginning when it comes to talking about Inter Miami. What are your thoughts been of their season up to this point?
Well, yeah, I mean, you kind of summed it up there. They're rock bottom at the moment, so they haven't been an interesting team to really watch at all. I mean, right now, they're 15th in the East, and I want to say 28th in the whole league. Maybe Colorado, I hear, is underneath them. So it hasn't been anything great, and I mean, it hasn't helped that they've picked up quite a few huge injuries this year as well. With Gregore, he's been out, I think, for almost the whole season now. I think he's possibly going to be coming back, but then you also got Jean Mota, who I think tore his ACL or something like that, so he's been out for a while. And, you know, it was already a Miami team that kind of was cutting corners because they thought Messi would come in, and Luis Suarez and Sergio Busquets, so they were kind of short on DPs, and they wanted to have that free salary cap. So, you know, they were cutting corners, and when you're taking out some of the better guys they had because of that injury, it just really wasn't anything special going on in Miami. So third least goals in the league, weren't doing really anything up top, fifth most goals conceded, weren't too solid in the back. That's why they kind of brought Kamal Miller in from Montreal, kind of in that mid-season point. But this team's just been rough to watch. But now you're getting all these new guys coming in, and it's kind of, you don't know what's going to happen yet, which I'm sure we'll dive into a second. But it's been tough for Miami, and they've been doing the best they can up until this point, and now they've got their guys in, and so the future, you know, is up for grabs.
You would expect this team to be at least a little bit better. I know they've had injuries, but you would expect this team to be a little bit better, because arguably they have probably one of the best, before Messi even showed up, one of the best attacking duos in MLS with Campagna and Joseph Martinez. You have two proven players. Granted, Joseph is not the player that he once was. We did see Campagna the season before, how good he could be. He's probably one of the biggest reasons why they made the playoffs. But yeah, I mean, this season, I think they did hold off on those signings because of, you know, the possibility of being able to bring in Messi, Busquets, X, Y, and Z midway through the season. But even still, you know, they still made good signings. You know, they brought in Joseph Martinez. They brought in Kamal Miller, granted, not from the beginning, but later on in the season, having to trade away Bryce Duke. And, you know, they have the right pieces, but it just seemed like under Phil Neville, things weren't going well. I guess things got really sour really quickly under him. And so I guess at this point, it's all the Tata show. And we've already seen glimpses so far in the Leagues Cup, but hopefully it's sustainable. I think that's the biggest thing, is can it be sustainable for Inter Miami throughout the entirety of the season? And it's okay to be reliant on Lionel Messi, but don't be too reliant on him. Granted, it's Messi, but we have seen when teams get too reliant on that one-star player, over time they start getting a little bit more found out, and it becomes a little bit more predictable on what teams need to do to shut teams out of the games. But do you think for Inter Miami that this could maybe be a bad thing, bringing in so many big-name stars? I know so far it's been going well. Hindsight is 2020. We'll see what happens come the end of the season. But, you know, as me and you, we've watched MLS for years, and we've seen many teams do this, and actually, I want to say more like 70 to 80% of the time, outside of maybe the Galaxy Dynasty back in like 2014, this formula doesn't really work super well in MLS. When you think about some of the most successful teams, they don't really bring in like super big name superstars. Like, for example, for our teams, you know, Seattle, Columbus, You know, Seattle's brought in the likes of Ladero, Rui Diaz, who granted are big players, but not like a big name superstar coming from Europe. And same thing can be said for Columbus, you know, bringing Zelarayan, Cucho Hernandez. Again, big players, like, don't get me wrong, but like not the big name superstars like a Messi, Busquets, or like a Zlatan, or a Steven Gerrard, or Andrea Pirlo. Does this maybe worry you that there's too many big stars, there's too many egos, and you gotta learn how to fit all of them, and it might be a bit of a tough task for Tata, and maybe could this backfire for Inter Miami, because they have done it. Inter Miami have brought in a lot of big name superstars, Matuidi, Higuain, Rodolfo Pizarro, and honestly, for the most part, you could say they've all been busts. Higuain maybe the one exception from them, but like, Inter Miami's done this, hasn't been successful, but I know it's Messi, and I know it's Busquets, these are great players, but maybe could this backfire for Inter Miami? Too many cooks in the kitchen for this team.
It might surprise you, but I don't think it's going to backfire. Now, there's two kind of points to this, and I think one of it is these signings that they're bringing in, you're not looking at long-term success. You're not looking at someone you can build the team under. You know, maybe, I guess, if Messi's getting equity in Miami, technically this signing is building for the future, but these are win right now players. This season, it's hard to kind of pinpoint where they're going to finish, but I think all the players they're bringing in, the Messi, Busquets, Jordi Alba, Luis Suarez potentially, you know, these guys I feel like are one step above the typical MLS signings you brought in. So you get Pirlo, Lampard, Gerrard. I mean, those guys all arguably were somewhat flops in the MLS. And then you even look at other guys like Thierry Henry, Bradley Wright Phillips. Yeah, those are those kind of top guys. But when you're talking about Messi, Busquets, these are guys who, you know, won the treble, won everything you can in Europe, have been playing at that top level for so many years that, you know, we can't even comprehend the amount of goals that Messi has put in over in Spain and in that Champions League. I don't think it could really go wrong. I don't think it is a bad formula, because you're talking about the top level of players here. And again, you're looking for short-term success. And when you talk about too many cooks in the kitchen, I think that is a very fair argument. But when you're talking about the whole 2015 Barcelona squad coming to play in Miami, I mean, these guys had the best times of their career together. So coming to Miami where they can be a little bit more relaxed and still probably dominate almost every single game, I don't think they're going to have a problem while fitting together. They know how to play, and I think you have those great guys coming in, and they're just going to make the other guys on that roster already even better.
They've almost brought in someone kind of in each part of the field. You know, you bring in Messi offensively, you bring in Busquets in the midfield, you bring in Jordi Alba defensively. So hopefully, for a team that doesn't have much success in MLS, has only been in the league for 3 to 4 years, they can kind of bring that experience that these players need, because one of the most experienced players they have in MLS is DeAndre Yedlin, and that's not, I mean, big props to DeAndre, but it's not really that great of experience in this team, all things considered. And granted, Messi, Busquets, Jordi Alba don't have MLS experience, but as you mentioned, they have experience on a whole different level. You know, they were part of a team that won a treble. They've all been successful in World Cups. I believe all have won a World Cup. They've won domestic trophies, a Copa America, a Euro. So this is experience that they can bestow upon these players that have played in MLS for a certain amount of years or have just recently come to MLS. So that could be a good thing. But I will say, it does worry me, let's say if Suarez, Sergio Ramos, Hazard, Neymar, I don't know, come in, I think that's going to be too much for this team, because I think you need to have that nice, healthy mixture of European experience with MLS experience. And now I think it's getting a little bit too top heavy. I will say I think Messi's the exception, which we've already seen so far. I think he's the guy who, I think he would have just been the one guy I would have brought in. I do think Busquets complements him really well, and I do think that helps. But I think now it's getting a little too excessive for this team, and I think that's where kind of the danger area comes. And I think it could backfire in regards to kind of how you talked about. You kind of have to have success now. Now the pressure is on for Inter Miami. Like before, yeah, Inter Miami had big players, but the pressure wasn't as on them, because well, they're still kind of the new kids on the block. Whatever happens, happens. But now all eyes are on Inter Miami. I mean, we're literally doing a video just talking about Inter Miami, because that's how much people care about them right now. And us people that make videos, that's how much we care about them right now. And so just to throw a little curveball at you, do you think then, because you're talking about, well, maybe this season doesn't matter as much because it's kind of like the growing pains, they're going to see how well they fit in together, they were kind of already dug in a hole, does that mean in these next 2 years, does Inter Miami need to be successful enough to like be winning an MLS Cup, to be a Supporter Shield winner, to be a big force to reckon with in MLS?
I think 100%. Unfortunately for them, when you're signing Messi and, every single MLS platform, whether it's, the MLS wrap up after all the games or extra time podcast, when they spend so much time talking about Messi, like 30 minutes worth of an hour and a half podcast talking about Messi, if he comes in and in the next 2 years, or if he extends that time, doesn't win significant trophies for this team, what's the point? That's kind of how I feel. Of course, it's game changing that Messi came here, and it's going to hopefully change kind of the roster construction that this league has. He needs to win a trophy. You can't do all of this and not come out with something on the other end, especially when not only you're getting Messi, but you're buying into everything he probably wants, is in getting Busquets, Suarez, Jordi Alba. I mean, you are bringing Messi and friends to Miami, and you have to win something if you're going to be doing that.
Will they make the playoffs this season? Because that's kind of the talking point, and obviously that's the main topic of today's video, because they're in last place, one of arguably the worst teams in MLS so far this season. We've seen a bit of a spark so far in Leagues Cup. Obviously, the season will resume back in August. They have a tall task at hand, but luckily for them, out of all years, this is probably the easiest of all years to make the playoffs, because over 50% of teams make it, as they just need to finish in 9th place.
Again, as you mentioned, this is the year for them to make the playoffs. You got 9 teams coming in. They're only 12 points off that last spot, and I was just taking a look through their schedule, and I'd argue they have a very favorable one. They have many games of teams that are in that kind of bracket of where they are. So you're looking at the bottom of the table, who's either just inside that playoff line or outside. They're playing Charlotte 2 times for the rest of this year. New York City FC, Toronto should be a very easy 3 points. The Red Bulls, I mean, these are all teams really struggling, and that makes up about half of the games they still have left to play. On top of that, you do have other, harder games in there. They play Cincinnati, and then they also play them in the Open Cup, and then you play Nashville. Then you have those middle teams like Atlanta and Orlando they have to come up against. So I think the potential is there to make the playoffs, and judging by those 2 games we've saw so far with Messi in Miami, it seems like they are another level above teams. Now, I do want to say I think Cruz Azul, who I think right now are on the bottom in Liga MX, given that they've only played 3 games so far in this part of the season. And then they also played Atlanta, who have one of the worst defenses in this league. And, they made Atlanta look extremely silly. I'd like to think when MLS comes back around and you're playing these top teams, that they're going to be able to, have a better game plan to how to mark Messi and how to not let him have acres of space, and how to let Sergio Busquets have so much room to just play a dime straight through him down the middle. So I think it is going to get tougher when MLS actually starts up again. But, I mean, anything's possible with Messi and co. So I do think they will squeeze into the playoffs. Whether they go far in the playoffs, I think that's yet to be seen. I can't quite base that after these 2 games, but those 2 games, they're coming off a 9-game winless run. As soon as Messi comes in, they pick up a win in the last minutes against Cruz Azul, and they dominate Atlanta, who I think is sitting 6th, 7th place at the moment, compared to Miami's 15th. So they have the potential, they have the ability, and we'll see if they can pull off a very successful Leagues Cup. And even if they don't, they'll get a little bit more rest, a little bit more time with Messi in the squad, working with everyone, trying to get them to that next level. And they'll come out in MLS ready to, take it by storm. And I do think they'll make up those 12 points. I think it's easy in MLS to make up points because so many teams will go on these streaks and then they'll struggle a little bit. So if any year is the year for them to make the playoffs this late on, I feel like we're going to see it happen.
But boys and girls, mine and Anthony's opinion only matters so much. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. Will Lionel Messi, Sergio Busquets, and Jordi Alba get Inter Miami in the playoffs this season? Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. Now that you finished this video, make sure to go check out the second part that Anthony and I did on his channel, where we discussed our top 3 favorite moments so far this season in MLS. So make sure to go check out that video next on his channel. After you smash the like button on today's video, subscribe if you're not subscribed already, and boys and girls, I hope you all have a lovely day.